Got it.
Hello and welcome to the NZ Ahead podcast. Today, me and Brian have got a really special guest for you. We have got Brett from Starwood Pet Travel. They are a company who bring pets over, well, they take them all around the world actually, but we're going to be talking about bringing pets to New Zealand. Before we jump into the show, I feel the need to tell you this. I just think it's really important that you know. So what you're about to hear is a conversation between me and Brian and Brett, who is the CEO of Starwood Pet Travel. And when we got on the Zoom call with him this morning, it was supposed to just be I don't know what the word is, a strategy call, a planning meeting of how we could have a podcast that brought value to people who had lots of questions about bringing pets over to New Zealand. And this lovely guy, who you're just about to meet, he's the CEO of this big company, and he was just in his house with all his dogs wandering around him. And he's like, hey, if you want to just chat now, let's just chat now about the whole process. And I feel the need to tell you that because you will know as much as I do how special that is when someone just loves their company, loves what they do, loves pets so much that they can just right off the bat just go, yep, anything you want to know, I can tell you about our company. He's just come back from New Zealand. He's done a big trip over to New Zealand to tour all the quarantine facilities and is chatting to the airlines to make sure everything is top notch. I just can't say enough about this guy. I really can't. He's just such a lovely man. And yeah, I just wanted to just put that in. The other thing I promised to say as well before we started this conversation was everything that we talk about here is as of today. It's as of March 2023. So before you bring your pets over to New Zealand, check out whether these requirements have changed and whether different countries have got different regulations. Just stay up to date with it, because Brett did say to us, he said, they change from week to week, sometimes day to day. You are going to absolutely love this guy as much as me and Bri love talking to him. So sit back and enjoy Brett from Starwood Pet Travel.
Got it.
Welcome to the NZ Ahead podcast. Everything you need to know about moving to and living in New Zealand.
There's a whole world here.
So nice to be with you again.
We call it Aotearoa around here, bro.
You'll be right.
We are your hosts, Liz and Brian.
Amazing New Zealand in the southern seas.
See, that's where I belong. That's home.
So yeah, we can just carry on this conversation. So Brett, thank you so much for joining us this morning and talking about the massive topic of shipping your pet over to New Zealand. Thank you.
Absolutely. Excited to be here with you guys.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your company and what it is you do, what services you offer?
Yeah, so Starwood Pet Travel has been around for over 30 years. It's based out of the US, but we have other brands that specifically focus on pet travel around the world, in Europe and in South and Central America. And we focus purely on people's pets, making sure we reunite families as they are relocating for personal, for work, for military, whatever it might be. That pets are, we always say pets have moved from the backyard to the living room, to the bedroom, and now to the bed for a lot of people. And so when they move, getting their pets with them is a huge part of the move. And we hear it time and time again that I don't care if my furniture sinks in the ocean as it's going across, or the car doesn't make it, don't do anything to my dog.
Yeah.
That's a part of our family. And so that's what we get the joy of doing, is bringing families back together all over the world, with New Zealand being always one of our top destinations.
Oh, there are so many questions I want to jump in here and ask you about. Lots of people on our community have used Starwood Pet Travel, so we love you guys already. But it's just, we just want to jump in. There's always little questions in my mind. When we emigrated from the UK, we didn't have pets, and I always think, wow, it was almost like a relief that we came here and bought our pets when we were here. But yeah, they're more important than your kids, Brett. They're just...
Yeah, but you know what? I look at people and they spend money on bringing pets over to New Zealand, and it's cheaper than kids.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
A lifetime of kids is just a fortune. It's just like you need another mortgage, don't you?
So what?
Yeah, as a dad of 3 girls, I definitely understand you right now.
For sure.
Yeah, I looked it up the other day actually, and something like if you have a child, it costs you something like $300,000 or something like that.
A day.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you ship worldwide then. So you can deal with people in the UK and South Africa. Is that right? You ship worldwide.
Yes. So we have different brands that are in the different areas. And so we have staff in those local. When we always tell people when they are transporting their pet, where the pet starts is the most important piece because most of the work is going to be done there. The vet work, the planning, the flights. And so each country, if you're leaving from Japan, there's different rules compared to the UK, compared to the US. And so we have teams that work in each country to make sure that the vet appointments, because we like to help the customer out full service. So a lot of times people are hiring us to bring their pet to the vet for them to make sure all the paperwork is correct. Because the worst thing you could do is after all months of planning to come down to technicality. And there are some countries, it literally comes down to the color of ink used on the piece of paper. Or Mexico is famous for refusing things if it is month, day, year instead of day, month, year. Mm-hmm. And something as small as that a vet doesn't spend a lot of time doing paperwork for people's pets going overseas. And so we're our team, that's what we focus on. So we're able to help people ensure that all those things are proper. So it's the shortest travel possible for a pet.
Yeah. Do you know what? I always say this. There are some things when you're emigrating that you spend money on. Getting an immigration advisor, I know we didn't, but it was like 13 years ago, so it was a lot easier. But now when you look at the paperwork, when you hear the stories of people who have trying to do it themselves, and like you say, you know, there's just some things, look, if you can afford it and it can make your life this easier, just let the professionals do it.
Yeah,
just let them help you out.
I remember just down to like you're saying with certain things, it was like you need a certified copy of your birth certificate, and I'm like, well, this is the original birth certificate. Why do I need a certified copy of it? And it's you don't realize that you get that from the registrar, like, you know. And I remember when our kids were born and getting them registered, he said, "Do you want a certified copy?" And I'm like, "Why do I need that?" And he said, "Oh, you never know." And I said, "How much is it?" He said, £15. And it was cheap, like, you know, and it's like, yeah, I'll have one of those. So that saved me so much heartache, you know, just those little details, isn't it? Just one thing.
Yeah,
you know?
It is. We had this famous chef in the States, and we moved her pet, and she did a podcast after the move. And she said a funny line that's always stayed with me. She told her audience, she's like, "You don't want to know what I paid, but it was the best part of the move." Yeah. She's like, it was by far the best part of the move. And we always tell people it is going to be, when people relocate, it's already incredibly stressful. Yeah. And a lot of times people are relocating for work. And so a change of a job, change of house, all this stuff are already at the top of the stress pyramid. And then you put the pet in and all the unknowns and the uncertainties of what airlines to use and what paperwork and how to insure this. And so we always encourage people, like, if you want to try to do it yourself and the country allows, a lot of countries are changing that and not even allowing people to do it themselves because there has been so many issues of incorrect crates to paperwork and issues at the airport. And as you can imagine, people get so frustrated. You get there the day of the airport, day of your travel, you bring your pet and the documents aren't right and the airline rejects you, but you have your flight. And so now what are you going to do at that point? And so people don't realize that, you know, it's already very stressful. It's working with a company like ours where that's what we do. We don't focus on the other sides. We're not going to help you move your household goods or help you with your immigration paperwork for you. But we can ensure that your pet's going to arrive there, and we have relationships with airlines, and we can know the process. So it saves you a lot of headaches.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I totally agree. So let's pretend that I'm living in the US and I want to ship my dog. What does the process look like from start to finish? I'm moving to New Zealand and I want to bring her with me. How does that look?
Yeah, so we always tell people if you are starting the process, it's good to bring in a professional in the beginning. The price doesn't change, but the headaches do. If you start from the beginning, it at least ensures the vet work and paperwork go in the proper order, and we don't have to go backwards. I was just seeing a customer today, their rabies stuff was all wrong. And so now they got to like restart. And if we would have started in the beginning, like we would have been able to catch things right away. Because and for New Zealand specifically, your microchip on your pet is the pet's identity. People don't realize, people think it's more if my pet gets lost, that's my microchip. The microchip actually doesn't help you at all when your pet's lost.
Yeah.
Your microchip is just a 13 digit number, and that's it. That's all it is. But it's the identity of the pet. So it does tie the pet to the paperwork. And so New Zealand, with their biosecurity rules, like that's the only way to ensure that this pet is with this paperwork. And so once you start, your rabies vaccination is set, then for New Zealand, there's a blood test that's required. And what that does is that basically checks the levels in the pet to ensure that the pet doesn't have rabies. And so there's a first draw, and then right now it's a 3-month waiting period for New Zealand, where then they check the numbers again. So there's another blood draw. So the pet's not traveling during that waiting period. So they're going to be waiting here in the US. And so that's why we tell people like we got to plan these out, because it's not going to be 1 week and we're going to be able to turn this around. And so once we get all that clear, once we get all that approved, then it's now getting the flights and the quarantine reservations and the New Zealand paperwork handled to ensure that the pet can actually hop on a plane, fly, arrive. Mostly it's arriving North Island from the States. So it is coming into Auckland, where one of the quarantine facilities, New Zealand, different than Australia, is not a government run. They are privately run. So there's multiple options, where Australia, there's only one quarantine facility in Melbourne, where Auckland, we have multiple facilities that we're able to use. And then they'll be in quarantine for 10 days. Great facility. I was just at one of ours in October of last year, and just very happy to see the vet coming in, the government vet coming in, doing the final checkup on the pet before the family came and was able to be there for the happy reunion. The kids crying and the dog running out, and just the joy. If it is going down south, then after quarantine, then we can book a domestic New Zealand flight and get the pet down south for their kind of final leg at that point.
So let me just say, so going back to that 3-month period that you talked about is that a quarantine in the USA, or is it just the dogs?
No, that's just at your house, wherever, right. So you can do that before you're relocating. Right. It's just basically a waiting period between when the first blood draw happens and then the second blood draw happens. Right. And so it's basically just looking at these levels that they're looking at, and making sure that they're not any higher level that the pet would show if they had rabies on that. So that 3-month period, there's no rules on where they can be, can't be, as long as they're staying in the United States. And then each country coming into New Zealand will differ. So some countries will have different rules on that. And that's where I think a lot of people do get confused too, is if they are traveling, we've seen it with cruisers or yachties that are going to different places. They're saying, well, was this way? Well, it depends on where you came from and how you're coming in to where those rules kind of sit.
So is there any country that is, I don't know if you know the answers to this, but is there a country that's easier than others? Like, is there a country where it's like, oh, you're all right if you're from there, it's going to be fine to get your dog in, and is there a country that's like super difficult where it's like, oh, you're gonna have to go through these massive steps to get your animal over? Does it differ? I'm just interested.
Yeah, Australia and New Zealand always work well together. Similar biosecurity rules and laws, and so it's always much easier to transfer between the two than it is to come from the UK or the US on that. There's also countries that New Zealand would say, like, we don't know the quality of paperwork coming out of those. And so some countries in Africa or South America where, it might be impossible to even import a pet from those locations. And so, and those kind of those change over times too. Where countries, the United States just did this last year, where they actually embargoed 100 countries in one day from pets arriving from, and so they've kind of gone back and loosened it up a little bit. But like even places like UAE was listed, and so we were like having to tell customers, like, if you're going there, we can't ensure that your pet could come back.
Wow.
And they've since lapsed that, and now pets can if they at least got their rabies here. But it's just everybody's trying to manage the quality of care and vaccines in these countries, and to ensure that if a pet does get vaccinated from rabies, that vaccine is actually a proper vaccine and the paperwork is actually proper. And so each country kind of makes their own rules on who they trust more than other countries.
Do you know what? I always thought that, this is really ignorant, but I always thought rabies was like an old fashioned thing that isn't around anymore. You know, when you talk about rabies, I think, oh, surely dogs don't have rabies. Do they? Is it a common thing?
It isn't. So US has been canine rabies free for many years, but there still is technical rabies in the United States with, raccoon or so there is other wildlife that could carry rabies. And so because of that, we're listed as a rabies country. And so with any country that has the potential of having rabies, then that's where the extended rules come into play on that. And that's why they kind of put those, because New Zealand is protecting their country from that arriving. And that was the same reason the United States embargoed 100 countries, is they said, we've eradicated canine rabies, we can't have it come back. So we don't know. And it was a lot in COVID with people adopting like street dogs in the Caribbean and some of this, that there wasn't the paperwork to show, where the pet was and their vaccine. So.
Yeah, I think what it was, you grew up in the UK and that was apparently rabies free.
Yeah, so, it was something
you
like
you see it,
about it. It's like, well, surely that doesn't, but it makes sense to me now, because it's like you say, raccoons and wild animals and things like that. You don't think about that. You just tend to associate it with dogs and that's it, don't you? But so thank you for clearing that up for me, Brett.
Yeah, and it's different because the UK could say they're rabies free, but another country could say the UK isn't rabies free.
Yes.
And so the UK goes into rabies categories for certain countries.
Right.
And so it's just interesting. It's all into the country of import and what they decide. And so where New Zealand, the US, UK is probably the top two importers coming in. And so have pretty similar kind of rules and standards for how pets arrive.
So Brett, and I know we're going to put a caveat in at the beginning of the show, and I know this question will change. It's not a set answer, and we talked about it earlier, didn't we, where we said the different countries are changing different rules all the time. So you have to do your homework, and we're recording this in March 2023. So this is, as of now, but it can change at any time. But if I had a Labrador, I'm living in the US and I wanted to move him to New Zealand, what sort of costs am I looking at for that?
Yeah, so one thing we always tell people when it comes to pets is pets cost is based off of size. And so a couple kind of misunderstanding of pet travel is pets do travel in cargo. So your airplane is a nice round cylinder, usually cut directly in half. Passengers are up top, cargo's below. Cargo's very different than cargo was 15, 20 years ago. So if you flew 15, 20 years ago and you checked the bag and it came out on the conveyor, a lot of times that bag was cold. And you remember grabbing it as cold.
Yeah.
Now you don't ever have cold bags. Well, they used to not pressurize and climatize cargo down there. And so it was colder. Now most aircrafts are completely pressurized and climatized. So where a pet is at is the same temperature, same pressurization as where we sit. So there's no difference on that side. But the way cargo works, where for passengers you buy a seat And if you're in first class, of course, you're going to pay more because your seat's bigger. And going back to economy, your seat gets smaller and you pay less. Well, they don't price it based off of how big of a person I am, but it's more how big of a seat I want. Where pets, they get priced based off how big their crate is. And so basically what an airline has done is they have quantified how much space is in cargo, and they charge you for what you take up. So what your pet takes up. So if you have a cat, it's great. Small crate, small space, less money. You have a Great Dane or a Lab, you're going to pay more. So it doesn't really matter what the pet weighs or the crate weighs. It's more we call it the dimensional volume, the size of the crate. And there are specific rules off of the crate. And so some people try to make a smaller crate to save money. And that's not the best for your pet. And so there are rules inches above their ears. They got to be able to turn around, lay down with their legs out, because it is, especially if you're coming from the US, like that's not a short flight. And you want your pet to be comfortable on that. And so what we always tell people when it comes to cost, it's really dependent on multiple factors. You know, if you're covering the vet work or if we're covering the vet work, there are fees there. In the US, most of our New Zealand goes out of California. And so we like the Air New Zealand flights direct, get right into Auckland on that. But if you're started in New York, now we have another flight, a part of the equation. Now we have to get you. And so if I want to go from New York to Auckland, I can buy one ticket. And even if I stop in LA and go on, it's still one ticket. A pet, you can't do that. It's actually two tickets now because they have to stop in LA because there's vet work that actually has to happen right before they fly. And in the States here, we have the USDA, and they have to sign off on the pet leaving right before the pet leaves. And New Zealand actually requires a crate seal where they put an official seal on the crate that they know that no dog or cat has been changed in that crate since the USDA sealed it. Yeah. So there's all these steps. And so it's always one of those hard things when people say, like, what is it? And so we always tell people, you know, you're probably looking in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, depending on the size of your pet, depending on if there are multiple flights, if there are vet work included. You know, we have the quarantine cost in Auckland. If you are down in Christchurch, and now we have another flight. And so it really is dependent because once again, if you are going from New York to Christchurch, well, you actually got 3 completely different plane tickets. Yeah. And they don't give you a benefit of, oh, well, you already paid for one, so I'll give you another one for cheaper. And so there are a lot of kind of complications. And then, as you mentioned, government rules change. And so sometimes there's a new paperwork requirement. And so now that's another government fee. And so what we try to do with people is be very specific on our proposals, showing everything that's included. And because some people are like, well, you know, I got this price. And we're like, well, yes, somebody did give you that price, but they didn't show you that you're going to pay this much for quarantine. Yeah. And you can't get to New Zealand without quarantine. So you're going to have to pay for that if they put it in or not. So we tell all of our clients, here's everything we're providing. Here's anything that you can do on your own, but here are what the costs are going to be. So you at least know a complete picture of what it's going to cost to move your pet.
Yeah.
I actually think that's a good price. I was expecting more than, say if we went top end, 10 grand, I actually was expecting more than that. I didn't know how much it cost, but
It still goes back to being cheaper than kids.
Exactly.
And multiple pets do take that. You know, we've had New Zealand ones that have gone $40,000+. It all depends on how many pets, size, you know, if we're doing boarding in the US on that side. So there are so many different pieces that could change a price. And so that's why our team talks to you as a customer first, figures out what your needs are, and then gives a quote specifically for your needs. Because I don't want to show you boarding cost if you don't need boarding cost.
Yeah.
But if you're already in New Zealand and your pet's in the US and you haven't started that process, and now we're going to be boarding for 3 months in the US, that's a real cost there.
Okay, then, Brett, what about this? What about if I've got 3 young puppies who just want to stay together and I want to put them all in the same crate, please? So I'm just going to pay for one size crate and my 3 puppies can go in there. Is that possible?
Yeah. I don't think so. I'm going to caveat this. There are certain like routes where if it is under a set age and you can prove it's the same litter, they do allow, I think, 2. I don't think that's New Zealand on that. I know domestically in the US, you can do 2 from the same litter if it's under, I think, 6 months of age.
Wow.
What we see is there's not many puppies going from US to New Zealand just based off of the time.
Yeah.
Because by the time you're done with all the stuff, they're not a puppy anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the cute little golden retriever you saw in your picture now is, 60, 70 pounds before they're arriving in Auckland. So
what is the most unusual pet you've ever been asked to ship?
yeah, we've had some fun ones. We did a grizzly bear for a movie. And so from Los Angeles to Cape Town, South Africa. And so we had to arrange that. We've done lions. We've done the Aflac ducks in the States, the insurance company Aflac. We've done their ducks. So yeah, we've done some Hollywood for movies, and so, but mostly cats and dogs.
It's just cats and dogs. Does anyone ship rabbits? Can you ship a rabbit?
You can. My daughter has 3 rabbits, and so I love little bunnies. And but different countries have different rules again when it gets outside of dogs and cats. And so we just actually helped a lady I was tagged on Facebook to a girl in need. She had couldn't find a job in the state and lost her visa and was having to return home to Vietnam. And was just so sad because the bunnies were what kept her together during COVID. Wow. And now she was going to have to leave her 6 bunnies behind. And then my heartstring just pulls because I can't imagine my own daughter not being able to bring her bunnies. And so we have successfully got them to Vietnam through Cambodia and ground into Vietnam. And it was very circuitous routing, but they're back together, and we're very happy that we were able to kind of help her keep her family together. So
that's a nice story. That's lovely.
Well, another one. What about reptiles? Can you do reptiles like snakes and stuff?
It's what we see is we call them companion animals, and so I'm not saying snakes can't be a companion animal, but when you get into what it costs to move a pet, you usually see the dogs and cats. People are more apt to spend that. When you get into the goldfish and hamsters, people aren't as likely to spend. And each country, the rules are so different. Some countries it's a hard embargo. No, these type of animals cannot come in. Other countries say they can, and so that's why you really want to talk to somebody that would know to be able to say, okay, if it is bunnies. Because even the crating is different requirements. And so you can't just put a bunny, in, a certain crate that might be okay for a dog into certain countries. It might have to be different. And so, but it really comes down to those individual countries on what they feel is available to come in and what they want. Some even on breeds. Some countries, it comes down to breeds of dogs. Certain breeds are banned. And so stronger breeds sometimes are banned in certain countries. So some countries, if the ears have been snipped or the tail has been doctored, those pets are not allowed in. And so it really kind of runs. That's why our industry is very interesting, because it is trying to figure out, okay, what are my rules here, but what are the rules there? And for each pet.
Yeah. And going back to that heartfelt, the girl in Vietnam, I just think this is a big question that comes up on the group as well. Is like these people are handing over their, the love of their life, their pet. Just do these animals get any like cuddles, or do they have much human contact, or is it just like no one is allowed near them because they're in like this crate? And how does that work? What does that look like?
Yeah, we try to make sure that pet travel is as stressless as possible. Now, travel is stressful in general. For humans, it's stressful. I was just flying last week and just walking through the airport and seeing some people running with their bags. You got some people, just stressed out at the ticket counter, and it's stressful. And so we always say, like, we want to ensure that it travels as stressless as possible. But each pet is so different. And so there are ways to kind of help mitigate that stress. And so like one of the ways is if your pet isn't comfortable with their crate, we always recommend getting that crate ahead of time and getting your pet comfortable with the crate.
That's
one of the issues we see is when a pet's not comfortable in that crate, they already can feel your stress and anxiety. And so when you put them in that crate for the first time, and that's the time we're picking up to bring to the airport, like that's a very stressful time for the pet. So we recommend, we have like a 3-week process where bring the crate in your house, keep the door open the whole time, but like throw a ball in there for the first week. Second week, put food in there. Don't shut the door. Let the dog come in and out, eat. Third week, put their food in there and shut the door while they eat. And then you let them out, just as a way of kind of getting them used to it. And we intentionally route, so if we go back to that like New York to Auckland route, we intentionally route to give the pet breaks in travel. So while they do have to get to LA, they're going to be there a couple of days, but they're going to be at a great kennel and they're going to be with people and they're going to be loved on and cared for. When we get to the airport, they are like, for New Zealand, they're sealed. Their crate is sealed. It's a government rule. It's not our rule. And so because of that, like there can't be the pet coming out. Now, I've been in many cargo facilities. People love pets being there. And so this isn't this like, there's a dog here. It's usually the cargo people aren't doing their job because they just love this cute dog and this great cat. And so I have seen many times cargo employees talking to the pets. And I, because I think it's so important to use airlines that we can trust, I intentionally go around the world to visit airports to make sure that pets are actually being transported properly, to ensure when we tell a customer going to New Zealand, that's why I was there in October, is to watch the whole process of how pets are coming off the airplane. And so once they do arrive in New Zealand and they get to quarantine facilities are just amazing. They are not, there. A lot of times there's TVs in the kennel runs for the dogs to watch TVs. The catteries are great, multi-levels. They can jump all around. They can put siblings together a lot of times in quarantine. And so kind of as they are traveling in separate crates, that when they get to quarantine, they're kind of back together again. And so you don't work in this industry if you don't love pets. Yeah. And so you don't work at quarantine if you don't love pets. And so we all know that the pets are stressed, but we also know that the pet parent is usually much more stressed than the pet. And so it's mostly common the pet parents fear that, you know, they're not the only pet to ever fly. Millions of pets fly every year. And so, you know, could be a stressful 10 days as you wait. But you know, a lot of times quarantines will give updates to let you know, the dog's eating and going to the bathroom great. And so those are the kind of pieces we try to make sure that customers know the process so they're less stressed during it.
So the crate, do you get to keep the crate afterwards, or is it just like a flying crate, or is it like just like a precision pet crate?
Yeah, it's a crate that most people don't want in their house.
I was gonna say,
sadly. It's not. A lot of people use like in the States, people use those wire collapsible crates that they use to crate train. The ones that are allowed for pet travel here in the States, we use kind of the rigid plastic crates. If you're coming from the UK loves to build the crates specific for the pets, so most of the UK crates are wood. Coming out. And so it is, I'm an environmental guy, and so I hate it because I feel like it is a large waste of plastic or wood because you get these crates and it's kind of like, what do I do with it now? Yeah. So we do try to reuse as much as we can. People don't want them. We sanitize them, clean them back out, and kind of, but we have a lot of people that go to New Zealand and then they get another change in their employment or something, and they are going to travel. And so we do have pets that, we had a pet go back and forth to China, I think 27 times back and forth. And that was his owner's job twice a year, just went back and forth. And so we always tell people, if there is that chance, keep the crate because you don't want to spend money that you don't have to. But it also still has to be in good working conditions. So sometimes people throw them outside. And if that door is getting rusty or whatever, they won't be approved. And so they do have to be in good quality.
All right.
I think it's absolutely wonderful that you're taking the time and the effort to come to New Zealand and walk through the quarantine facilities and look at all how these animals have been. I think that's wonderful, Brett. I really do. It's a testament to your company because you don't, just being on the ground there and having it all firsthand, I think that it's such a reassuring thing. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
it's really important to me. And, I've always said for our company and then for the industry, I want to raise that bar in pet travel. Pets aren't commodities. They're family members. And so, I was working with an airline, one of the largest airlines in the world, and I said, for your passenger side, the bar isn't, well, we just didn't die when we fly. Like, that's not the bar we set. Yeah. But for pets, a lot of times, it's like, well, at least they're alive. And that's not how pets should travel. They're family members. They should travel as best as possible. We know a lot about ways to mitigate stress in pets. We know airlines that really care about pets, and there are some great airlines. And sure, there's some bad stories out there, but all in all, for the percent of pets, like, it is a really safe way to transport your pet. And I know because we hear it every day of the week, like, I can't leave a family member behind. I'm not leaving one of my kids behind. I'm not leaving my spouse behind. And so, like, I got to figure out how to make it happen. So what does it take to do that? So, we keep that bar. I want to ensure people, our salespeople tell people all the time, like, we're not just telling you something, we're proving it. We've been on the ground. We've seen it. It's important to us to actually do that. We actually even send videos. We filmed videos in New Zealand of quarantine, of this process from Auckland, just to say, like, this is important to us that we actually do this in the country, not just speak about it from the US side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
It's true. Is it true, Brett, that pets can watch TV on the flight?
They cannot watch TV on the flight. Right. No TVs down there. No TVs. No eating even. No food during travel. People do. It's amazing what people do try to fit into the crates. Yeah. And we tell people, especially when you get into a country like New Zealand with quarantine, like, things aren't allowed because they don't know what bug or could be in that. Yes. And so, like, we tell people, like, don't put the favorite toy in there. Don't put, now it's common for, like, AirTags, the Apple AirTags, to be slipped on so people can track. Yeah. Well, those don't make it. They get destroyed because AirTags actually have a battery compartment. Yes. And technically they say there could be a bug. They got into that, and we don't want that in our country. And so we tell people all the time, like, Let's put a nice bedding in there. But after that, like, we don't want anything that has such sentimental value because it's not going to make it through quarantine. They're not going to keep those things for you. So
that's good to know. Yeah.
And oh God. Right, I'm going to try and keep this short because I know this was we're taking up quite a bit of time. But listen, if this is the other thing that comes up as well. So what about people who've got an animal that is really getting on a little bit, getting a bit old, and they're thinking, oh, you know, maybe we should put off our move to New Zealand for another 3 or 4 years because I don't think, you know, my dog will make it or the cat will make it. What would you say to people like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's happening more and more often. We are keeping our pets alive longer. And there's been great new science, and you can do chemotherapy for your pet. You know, and so what we have seen is as pets have gotten older, you know, stress can have more of an issue on a pet. And so we tell people all the time, that's why you and your vet need to have a lot of conversations. You know, our role is kind of like the travel agent. We know the way to get your pet there, the documents. We're not vets. And so we can't tell you that, yes, your pet will do great, or, you know, this issue they have will be fine in travel. You know, diabetes is a big one now where pets needing insulin. And what people don't realize when they come from the US is, you know, New Zealand's a couple hours ahead of us, time-wise. And so when your pet needs a shot, you know, twice a day at this time, but, you know, they're in travel a decent amount of time where they can't get that shot. Airlines can't give those shots. Most quarantine facilities won't give shots. And so there are some of these things we kind of have to walk through of what would prohibit any travel. If a pet is cleared to travel, then it's really working with your vet. And that's why in the US and most countries, there's called a health certificate that has to be issued by the vet. And it has to be issued within, most times, 10 days before their flight. So it's right before their flight. And it's a vet doing a full exam saying, we feel from our expertise that this pet is fit to fly. And so we take that and say, okay, if a vet is signed off and the customer is signed off, then you know, we're moving forward with travel. But we help people because we put it in 3 different categories. One is elderly pets, and elderly is also dependent on size. A large dog is elderly a lot of times at 7 years old, where a small cat might not be elderly at 7. So we have elderly, we have pre-existing conditions, and then we have breeds. So flat-nosed dogs or snub-nosed dogs, be it like a French Bulldog, Boston Terrier, sometimes they have a harder time just breathing normally. And so travel can make it harder. And so those 3 areas, we work with the customer and tell them like they need to have a different conversation with their vet that they wouldn't have if it wasn't their pet was in one of those categories. And so we highly recommend that vet relationship is so important. They're the experts in this. And so, and that's where, you know, sadly, we see it where somebody's moving and they're like, we know our pet's old, but we can't leave them behind. And it's just one of those things. We've seen it time and time again where pets have done, those elderly pets have just, they're troopers.
Yeah.
Came out great, you know, not stressed at all. And so you just never know when it comes to a dog or a cat. But that conversation with the vet is really important.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. So is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you feel as if you would like to say?
I think, you know, what we see is places like New Zealand, while it's really harder to get to, if you are looking that you're going to go there, but you are moving again somewhere else, just know a lot of times where you're going is going to be much easier. Coming into the States is so easy. There's no quarantine. It's great. It's very easy. So if you are frustrated with the process to get to New Zealand, if you ever leave New Zealand, then you're going to be like, this is just a breeze. This is easy. So
that's brilliant.
And then second, just plan ahead. We have people that have already like booked travel for, 2024. And while we can't confirm flights or anything, and that's one thing people don't realize too, is most airlines, we can't book flights until like 14 days before travel.
Wow.
And so there's not this, like, I can go ahead and book a flight for, December today if I wanted to. But most pets are only getting booked within a very short period of time. And so that's why it's important to kind of go through the steps, and then we can ensure that things do run smooth.
Mm. Oh, I can see your dogs in the background.
Good timing for the dogs.
Yes, I know. I have my parents, so we actually have 4 golden retrievers in the house right now.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So I have my parents' 2 dogs and our 2 dogs. So.
And I just want to say, for the record, before I let you go, I just want to say this because it's admirable. It's lovely. This conversation that we're having now was never going to be a podcast, because we were trying to work out whether we should bring you're the top of your company, aren't you? This is your company that you own. And we were trying to be like, okay, so shall we speak to your person on the ground in New Zealand? And you have just sat here, the head of this company, and talked to us like I'm your best mate about pet travel coming into New Zealand. And you don't know how reassuring that is for a pet owner to just be able to talk to someone on one-on-one like that. And I can see you're an animal lover. And like I say, you come to New Zealand and your company is all about keeping that pet happy. And it's just lovely, Brett. I just want to say thank you so much. I really do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We love what we do. And we're blessed to have a great team behind us in many countries that get to get the beautiful videos back of the family being reunited. And so for us, it's such an important piece. We don't take it lightly, the stress that it can be on a family. And so we absolutely love what we do. We're all animal lovers. And so it's a great piece for us and what we do. So.
Oh, well, thank God.
And on that note, I'll be sure to leave.
Yeah, on that note.
Yes, I'll be sure to leave all the links in the description. But thank you so much for taking the time and sharing all you have to offer about pet travel to New Zealand. Thank you so much, Brett.
Thank you, guys. I've enjoyed the time.
Yeah, that's been great. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. We have loved having you here with us.
If you loved this week's show, please share this with your friends. Send it to anybody you know that wants to think about moving to New Zealand, and get on over here yourself.
And tell them how brilliant it is as well. And also, if you haven't signed up for our free 5-day video guide showing you what life is really like in New Zealand, then go over to the website and sign up. You are missing out. This is brilliant. Go over to www.nzahead/free and we will send you 5 days worth of videos about what life is like in New Zealand. You are going to love it. So one more time, that website that you need to sign up for the free 5-day guide is www.nzahead/free. So we're going to see you next week. Until then, have a great week and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Say bye again. Bye.
Bye.